everyone. I'm Jane, and recently a terrible smell appeared in my school which did not even allow us to concentrate on studies and caused us tears. Maybe you think it was necessary to carry out a spring cleaning or ventilate the premises, but believe me, this was all done, but it did not help. Anyway, let me tell you about everything from the beginning. The building of my school was built but only 3 years ago, and I was lucky enough to become one of its first students. By the way, my dad supervised the construction process, so it was doubly pleasant for me to study there. What can I say? I even saw how the foundation was laid. Gradually, many students came here, and our school was recognized as one of the best in the city. We have the best equipped classrooms, 3 sports rooms, a music studio, and even a real chemical and biological laboratory. And most importantly, the best teachers in our district were eager to work here. One might wonder about learning and rejoice because all circumstances are favorable to the students. But at the beginning of the school year, something went wrong because there was some smell in our school. But initially, it was barely perceptible and no one paid attention to it. However, every day the smell got stronger and it became more difficult to pretend that everything was fine. Sometimes nausea came to my throat. It was so disgusting that it made me sick. And then we started looking for the cause, or rather the source of the stench. The investigation was led by our biology teacher, Mr. Times, because he was trusted by both the school administration and the students. And a history teacher, Mr. Charge, volunteered to help him. First of all, everyone thought about the sewer system, but everything was fine with that, and the smell was found least in the bathroom. Moreover, Mr. Charge said it didn't smell like sewer. Rather, it resembled rotten eggs. So he suggested that either the cause of our suffering lies in the dining room, namely spoiled food, or something else. He suggested that the second reason could be a pest. That is, a person who deliberately makes a stink in our school pursuing some unknown goal. And he immediately said that in this case, there's a possibility that the building will have to have major repairs because we may not find the source of the stench at all. At first, no one understood what this can mean and why someone would poison the whole school. And then I remembered one incident from my life. It happened back in our old apartment, and it was also the reason why we moved. It so happened that we had a very mischievous and disgusting neighbor. He didn't like anything. Sometimes we were too noisy, then we parked our car in the wrong place, then we threw our garbage into the wrong can. In general, he was a person who was just always discontent. At a certain point, we realized that he would not stop until we moved, and so we began to look for a new home. However, this process was not fast, and soon a terrible stench appeared in our apartment. I can't even describe what it was like, and it was probably better not to imagine it. The worst part is that we couldn't find the source. It seemed to stink everywhere, and it was simply unbearable to endure it. But the point is that even when we took all the things out of this house, including our furniture and appliances, the empty apartment still continued to stink. And we learned the reason from the repairman who broke the front door along with the jambs and their fear and darkness. My mom even fainted from the rushing aroma. It became clear that it was the neighbor who pumped our front door with eggs, and they began to rot there and spoil our lives. Is it really something like that here? In that case, our studies in the school as a whole would be over. For several days, we were looking for spoiled food in the cafeteria, but everything was fine. They're fine, to the point that I even shed a tear because of what a cool school I studied at. But for some reason, Mr. Times and Mr. Change still looked at the cafeteria workers in disbelief as if they weren't happy that we couldn't find anything there. Meanwhile, students and teachers began to come to school in gas masks because the stench made their eyes water and they could have easily lost their lives. Believe me, it's better not to breathe at all than to breathe this. Next, we had to comb over every centimeter at school because there were no other options. I think it would have taken more than a day, if not for one, but the smell began to fade. At that moment, it became clear to everyone that someone had simply removed the source of the stench from the school walls. But What kind of joke was this? Absolutely no one was planning to retreat, and we intended to find the scoundrel and punish him. But how do we find out who was behind the gas attack on the school? It's like looking for a needle in a huge metropolis, and the man probably hid all the evidence so that there would be no complaints against him. But it was impossible to leave everything as it was because the attacker could again arrange harassment within the walls of the school, and we could not allow this. Soon, my classmates and I started noticing very strange things. The fact is that there was the same smell of stench that was in the school from Mr. Times, but not as strong as before. At first, I even thought I was imagining it, but everyone else felt it too. Well, he couldn't have been the source of the stench last time. No, absolutely not. There was nothing wrong with him before. Otherwise, we would have all walked around at 1,000,000 steps. There was something different here, and we needed to figure out what it was. It was Mr. Change who also noticed something with Mr. Times and suggested that we join forces to follow him. My friend Louise and I went to his house and hid right across the street. It was very strange that all the windows of Mr. Times were closed as if no one lived there. Although we did not rule out the possibility that he moved and we came to the wrong address, soon he appeared. He was obviously worried. He looked around and then he hurried into the house. But after a couple of minutes, he came out with some kind of carrier in his hands, and it looked like the carrier was for animals. Maybe his cat got sick. We called Mr. Change and told him what we had seen while Mr. Times went somewhere else, but not far because his car was blocked. It was Mr. Charge. It turned out that he was nearby, and after our call, decided to intercept the suspicious colleague. Soon, the back door of the car opened, and there was the same smell in our school just recently, and there was a small animal in the cage. Mr. Charge recognized it right away. It was a skunk, the most feared animal. It turned out that our school smelled like a skunk the whole time, and now Mr. Times has had it. The truth was closer than ever, and there was no point in stringing us on. So Mr. Times told us his story. It turned out that he had previously worked at a nearby school, and he had dreamed of a promotion for many years, but no one was interested in his dream, so he remained a simple teacher. And soon, when our school opened and many students began to move there, the administration of the school where Mr. Times worked was furious. They decided to close our facility at all costs, and they even knew how the headmaster of that school sent Mr. Times to work for us, but not permanently. He had to make sure that our school was closed and then return, but this time to the position of the director of teaching. It was then that Mr. Times came up with a plan with a skunk, which he bought on the black market and brought to school. However, as soon as we started checking the whole school, he had to take the animal home. That's why he set him up, or rather the stench, which was not left anywhere else except for himself. After all, Mr. Charge did a great job because thanks to him, we managed to keep our favorite school. I don't know if I'm right, but it seems to me that now Mr. Times will never see the position of director of teaching. He will not even get a job as a teacher anywhere. Do you think this is an excuse for such a teacher who decided to poison the whole school with a stench? Write your thoughts in the comments, click on the thumbs up button, and subscribe to our channel.